America's education system is broken, and we all kind of wonder how that happened. Um, it's very similar to the banking evolution and how that came about. Um, just imagine for a moment that you go into a bank and you just deposit your money, and then you don't ask questions, you don't critically think about what you're doing. You just deposit the money, you just keep doing it, and then people are just controlling your money. And you have to keep in mind that the banking itself is supporting only one group of people, and that is mainly hearing white males. So today we're going to be discussing how those two connect and how um, that came about. So back in the 19th century, the Industrial Revolution happened, and that changed everything: the economy, culture. There were three main goals that came about: is that they wanted people to mainstream, and they wanted to be able to control the masses. And the second was that they wanted people to just be quiet and just go along with their lives and not be critical thinkers. And the other is that they wanted the banking wanted to raise a trust up where they could take the money and use it and then profit from it. So back in the 90s, like that's when it all started with mass production, and they realized that one person could monopolize one field of things, and one day, but they realized that they needed money to do this, and not just from their group. So back in the 19th century, life was pretty simple for people. They lived on farms and they grew food, and they were a community and they supported each other. But what they did is they started, people from the higher ranks started to encourage the lower ranked group of people not to go to school, not to become educated, so that it would be much easier to take advantage of them. And that really influenced how the whole process of the banking showed up. So bankers would approach these farmers and tell them to invest in these railroads and factories, and tell them that they would get this money back, when most times it would be a scam, and it would be them just persuading them to do something that they knew wasn't going to work. But this is how they got their money. So all that connects to two of the main people who were kind of the pioneers for the Industrial Revolution, which is Rockefeller and Carnegie. So Rockefeller and Carnegie, they realized that they needed to start educating their workers. So they established schools, and the thing about these schools is that they started to become divisive. Three things they did is they divided people, and then they started to label them. And then they would pick out who they thought would be the smartest or the strongest and put them into a group. And then they would put a group of the people that they thought were not at that level. So as this process went on, they taught this group that they thought was the best to look down on the other group and teach them that they needed to keep their power in their group and not share it, or not spread it out into the community, but keep it in their small little group, and then look down at the groups that didn't have that. And what really happened is that the classroom became a lab. They started to evaluate students there and who would be successful and who would not. And a lot of that led up to eugenics. So eugenics really came about from a man named Francis Grant. He was very interested in people's genealogy and why successful people, like how those genes pass down throughout generation. And he would look at both groups, and he realized that he came to the conclusion that they should be separated and that they shouldn't socialize and mix, because he thought that the lower class people would like contaminate the higher class people. And a lot of his work with the genes and like making a pure race influenced a lot of Alexander Bell's work, which was very detrimental to the deaf community. Alexander Graham saw that when deaf people had children, it would pass down from generation to generation, and he didn't like that. And he thought that they needed a cure, and so he didn't want deaf people to be married, to have children, and that caused a huge impact on the deaf community. And two of his main supporters were Rockefeller and Carnegie, and they put a lot of money into Alexander Bell's work. And it just goes to show that if you keep all of the power and the money in one group, they can support things that have serious effects on another group.